Did you know there is a molecule that if you inhale it, it can be lethal? And it is the principal component in acid rain. This molecule is the most commonly used solvent in chemical industries. Such an eclectic substance can be found almost everywhere on the planet, and it is crucial for sustaining life. We are talking about water, and our future is bound to the ways we consume it. 72% of our planet is covered in water, and of that 72%, only 2.8% is fresh water. Of all the fresh water on our planet, 75% is inaccessible as it is locked away in snow and ice, leaving only 0.7% of the water on Earth as attainable to be consumed as drinking water. Most of our drinking water comes from the groundwater, rivers, natural reservoirs, and springs. When one more of those natural sources gets disrupted, water shortages are bound to happen. The city of Cape Town in South Africa is currently experiencing one of the worst droughts in living memory. So how does Cape Town get their water?
Cape Town gets their water not only from rain, but we get our water from snow on the mountains. So the reason for a lot of our problem is that we haven't had enough snowfall on our mountains to fill our reservoirs. And I think people are focusing too much on when it rains, and if it doesn't rain in a catchment area, your reservoir's not going to fill up. The rain's just going to flood away into your stormwater system, as opposed to the snow and the rain coming into a reservoir area. What is the national government, in our case, doing with regards to storing of bulk water in a dam?
Even with less water available, this problem is worsened by a rapidly growing population.
Africa is becoming the biggest growing continent.
In just one generation, our water consumption has increased by 8 times to what it was before. Some factors in unnecessary water loss can be attributed to mismanagement at water facilities and plants, pollution, and also our own wasteful habits of personal consumption.
The potable water for flushing toilets and things, we should be utilizing grey water, but it's quite a difficult thing to do here. So I'm looking at ways of being able to let the water that we still use for washing, that we can actually filter that and then have it pumped into a tank above the bathrooms and utilize that for flushing. We're in the process of looking at that. And at home as well, we've gone on to completely biodegradable and non-harmful chemicals for our washing of clothing. I've rerouted my pipe and stuff, and I have it pumping into cut-off drums at home. So any clothes washing and dishes and things that we do at home, it's all organic products that we use, and then we utilize that water as well for flushing and for our plants.
The agriculture and food industry is a major player in the loss of our drinking water.
The mass production of beef, the mass production of eggs, the mass production of the milk-based products, it's just not sustainable for the water, for humanity, for the diseases and things that it causes.
In fact, it takes 15,000 liters to produce 1 kg of beef. We literally eat more water than we drink.
To support one person's intake, the same amount of plant-based material will feed 15 humans.
Along with the effects of climate change, current projections see the amount of available drinking water to decrease by 20 to 30% by the year 2060.
It's time we all woke up and paid a little bit of attention, because we can't just restart and say, oh, we'll do it better next time. Now is the time to make that happen, and to make a change.
With water becoming a scarce resource, people and companies are turning to new and innovative methods of extraction in order to produce more drinking water.
There's so many ways other than waiting for rain to get water. Desalination plants. what do you call these water farms. If you have a place that is has a lot of fog running through, you can put a water farm up.
With the demand of water rising, Cape Town is experimenting with using desalination plants to supplement its drinking water. But what is the ecological impact of utilizing such a method?
The city is moving towards desalination as what looks like will be the long-term solution for the city of Cape Town. And this is logical here. As an institute, the International Ocean Institute, we were approached by the regulator here, the South African Maritime Authority, to say they've been asked to permit the use of desalination systems, and they don't understand the potential implications for the environment should they be concerned. So we took the process and did some research to say, okay, what is happening in other parts of the world versus what could be happening here? And is there cause for concern? The answer is, on one hand, yes. With desalination, you have a byproduct, a saline brine, hypersaline brine, that is discharged into the environment. And in a micro-ecosystem context, this is potentially very harmful. In a larger ecosystem context, where you have mixing of the water, the problem is more negligible. So the question really is, what degree of mixing can you expect at the point of discharge? How far out is your point of discharge, and what is the ecosystem in that area in terms of the movement of currents and the complexity of the ecosystem and its inhabitants? If we look at Cape Town, we have a system here which is on the west coast of South Africa, where we know it to be very rich and productive because of the upwelling current. The upwelling current, the Benguela current, is a wind-driven current. So the strong wind we have that blows offshore takes the surface water out, which is warm water, and brings up very cold, nutrient-rich water from the bottom. This is a natural mixing system. It's the most mixing you could expect in a marine system. So by default, we are sitting in an area that lends itself to the type of mixing that would make desalination less of a concern, or I should say the byproduct of desalination less of a concern in terms of the impact on the environment. That's not to say there won't be smaller systems that would be impacted. If you discharge that water into a small enclosed bay that doesn't have good mixing, you could have localized impact. But on a bigger scale, we're not likely to have long-term, big picture impact from the discharge from desalination. So this is one of the reasons, and there are several, that make desalination a likely long-term solution for Cape Town.
Besides industry innovation, other solutions in combating the water crisis have large in part to do with our individual choices. We need to change our own habits in order to reduce the environmental impact locally.
The carbon footprint or grey energy that it's from factory, from farm to plate makes a massive difference. So we should be supporting the local farmers, the products, and also the organic farmers. It's way better for the environment. The monocropping culture that we've sort of like been born into it doesn't work.
Cape Town residents are facing one of the most serious water crises of any modern city. As a population, they must curb their water consumption drastically.
Western Cape people have really come together when it comes to saving water, and that is something that really came through if you look at the stats of water that we used to use. I mean, we used to use about 800 million litres of water a day, 900 million litres of water a day. Now we're on 500 million litres of water a day.
This change in daily water consumption is almost entirely in part to each individual's reduction in their own daily water use. Every person is required to reduce their own intake.
The social side of the situation in Cape Town has been very interesting, that this has been one of the first issues that has been taken seriously by industry and the citizens. And by taken seriously, I mean people believe there was really going to be a day the taps are turned off, and that we understood the potential for safety concerns and for all of the things that would come with the difficulty of having to access water from the locations, the collection points. And the way Cape Town handled this was to say, of course, the townships would not have their water turned off because they're already collecting from collection points. So this already brought some sense of sanity and balance where, okay, the rich people will actually have their taps turned off and the poor people won't. So that's already seen as a more equitable way to move forward.
The city government has taken steps to create mass awareness and promote sustainable habits, with each resident urged to keep consumption below 50 litres a day.
I think the city of Cape Town have done a very, very good job in educating people. From the time that you get off the airport, of an aeroplane coming from anywhere in South Africa, first thing you do is run into a bathroom, and they would have all their taps switched off except one, and they'd state there, all these taps are off, this is the tap that's on. The reason for that is it's water saving. So people are faced with water saving right from when they walk into Cape Town. Now, I don't think it's not the first thing you want to tell somebody when they come for a holiday.
The other steps, such as putting websites out where you can see who's using how much water and you can look at your neighbors, and it's kind of a name and shame, because there were many areas, like in the affluent communities, where people just refused to believe this was a real situation, refused to stop using water. I think this was ingenious. I think this was very good at getting people to use the way they interact socially to put some pressure on this issue. But mostly, I think what it's done is it's made people become more aware of our relationship to natural resources and to the services that are provided. We realize, wow, if this one service is gone, there could be chaos, there could be a lot of implications. What about electricity? What about our garbage and sewer? And what about all these things that we take for granted? And I think as we look at the challenges that are coming over the next decade or more, for the next generations, I think this was just a taster of really the types of things that we can expect to grapple with socially.
Even in the midst of this serious water shortage, there are some residents that believe that it is a hoax.
For someone who does not acknowledge or pretend to think of an hoax, of a water crisis being an hoax, it's not ridiculous, but it's a bit it's scary and sad.
And if you aren't convinced, consider this argument.
If you waste water, then you can't drink water, and then there's no water, and then you can't bath, and you smell stinky a whole day.
Cape Town is just one example, and many cities across the globe will have to change their consumption and practice more sustainable habits as we face newer environmental challenges.
I don't think there's enough awareness of what you're talking about water use and how much waste there is and how we've become accustomed to it. The idea that most toilets in the civilized or Western world flush drinking water is perverse, it's crazy. And only here, in the last couple of years, where people have now converted their toilets and converted their houses to catching, do people actually wake up and realize, I couldn't put drinking water in my toilet again. But when you get to the industrial farming and these other practices and the water use there, I don't think there's awareness anywhere near the level it needs to be of the alternatives or the level of waste, or even if you don't call it waste because it's necessary to produce these things, I don't think the consumer is aware of the implications of their actions yet. We know when consumers become truly aware, there are campaigns and there is a lot of power the consumer has. Here we're dealing with other related issues like ocean plastics and things like this, and we see a lot of advancements because people wake up and say, there's plastic in my fish, literally, and there's toxins in my fish from it. I'm not going to eat that anymore. That has health implications. So now when people connect the dots, when it comes back and impacts them, they'll become more aware.
We're heading into big trouble if people don't really kind of take care or be conscious of water usage.
There are so many people in Africa, and I'm sure all around the world, that don't have access to fresh water and stuff. And water is life. We are nothing without it. We cannot survive.
In the end, it's up to the individual to make a difference. If not for yourself, do it for the future.
Please don't waste water for the future.